one of the things I hate is when people ask me what I do. And you'd think after doing the same thing, this is my 19th year, I would know what to say. But I still don't. And the funny thing is, I like asking people like what they do because I'm curious and interested what people do for a living, how they make their money. It's just a very curious thing. And yet when people ask me, the first thing that hits my brain is, oh man, why'd you ask me? And so my brain goes through all these things like, well, I am a financial advisor, but I don't necessarily like identify as a financial advisor because most of the time I'm railing against financial advisors and pointing out what they don't do right. And then I'm like, well, I guess you could say you're a money manager, which is true. I manage people's money. But again, it feels too throwaway, like, oh yeah, a money manager, like Merrill Lynch or UBS. And so I don't want to say that. And then sometimes I'll say, well, I do market research, like on the stock market, which is true because that is my foundation of how I started, was to do research on the stock market to learn what really worked, not what sold best or what got marketed best or what was the conventional idea, but real research, digging into it. And so sometimes I would say, oh, well, I'm a stock market researcher or I'm a market researcher. And then they'll go, oh, you're a professor? I'm like, well, I mean, no. Oh, what do you do? Oh, you're a financial advisor. So it's such a hard thing for me to answer. And so sometimes I usually just say, well, do you mind if I just tell you, like, the reason why people come to me? Like, there's only really one of three reasons why people come to me. And one of them is, look, they tried the big box advisor or the independent or the boutique advisor, and they just kind of noticed that their money went up and down with the markets minus fees, commissions, and expenses. And that was no longer okay with them anymore. And so I say like that's one reason. And then I say, well, and then another reason, there's only three reasons. Another reason is someone's kind of gone down the do-it-yourself path, right? They maybe had the big box advisor or not, but now they're in the do-it-yourself world. They read the books, they went to the workshops, they have 5, 6, 7 pick of the week, pick of the month newsletters, and they're just kind of noticing it's not working, and they want to know what really works. Or the third, someone says, I've done everything the right way. I got the career, I got the degree, I got the house, I got the spouse, I got the kids, I got the car, I got everything. And yet I'm looking at, the choice to not have to work, and it's not getting any closer. What am I doing wrong? And they've earned enough. Like, they know earnings is not the issue. And so I just often find that if I just describe what is the one of the three ways, that seems to help. But it's funny because it happened to me yesterday, and I'm just like, oh, I hate this question, even though I like asking others. So hey, everyone, that was on my mind, and I wanted to get it off my mind. Look, there is this thing that is going on, and I want to point it out, and you've heard me talk about it before, but I want to point it out in a different way, and I want to talk about it in this podcast episode. I think we are 351. Hey everybody, this is RC Peck, and this is my weekend podcast. It's so great to have you here. And the theme for this weekend is, or at least for this podcast, is if everyone's telling you the same thing, but that thing is actually not true, how will you ever figure out that one thing is the thing that might be hurting you? So on the screen, you see two football players doing the toss or saying hello. They're probably the captains of the two teams. And you have Yale on one side and Harvard on the other side. And a lot of people look at what Yale and Harvard do with their endowment and how they grow it. And one of the big things I rail against that most people believe to be true is that you should have stock market diversification. You should have your large cap and your small cap and your mid cap. And you should have some in international, domestic, and some in bond and some in equities, just because that's the way to do it. And the promise of diversification is your money will be protected on the downside when the market falls or crashes or sells off. And the promise when the market is in a stable uptrend is that it will grow faster. But if you ever did the evidence and did the work, you know that is actually not true. And what's crazy about this is even when you go to the disruptors, right? Like the do-it-yourself people, the newsletter industry, they rail against the big box advisors in the conventional industry, but they still tell you to be diversified. And even if you go to the disruptors of disruptors, which typically is Silicon Valley, right? Tesla is disrupting the car industry. Uber is disrupting the get people around industry. Airbnb is disrupting the hotel industry. So you'd think Silicon Valley would have figured out how to really disrupt the grow your money industry, but they didn't. All they do is they show you a different variation on diversification, one that has lower fees. So you go to Harvard and you look at Harvard's layout of how they allocate the money, or Yale, or any of these I almost said companies, any of these entities, and you'll see the same thing. So you never think to question diversification, and yet look at this right here. This is an image of showing the Harvard allocation and the Yale allocation, and the only two I really want to focus on is here at the top. It says domestic equities. So Harvard's in the U.S., so that means U.S. equities, and right under it, it's foreign equities. And then you go over to the other side, and Yale has the same belief system that you should be diversified in domestic equities and foreign equities. Now, the only difference between these two is they both believe, and this is not the point, but they both believe, at least in this image, that you should have 12% in domestic, and one thinks you have 19% in foreign, and the other believes you should have 15%. So the point is not what it is in, or the allocation amount. The point is, should you even have money diversified domestically and internationally? And the evidence clearly says no. No, that's actually a tax on your future. It's actually a tax on your return. And I can show you in this price chart right here. Now, this is a real price chart. This is one I just got today. So it is up to date to the hour. And this price chart goes back to 1996. So it's 2 decades old, or it has 2 decades of data. It's only an hour old. And it compares the world index, the Morgan Stanley World Index, against the U.S. stock market, S&P 500. And the green line going higher, all that means, or when this price chart goes higher, that means, yes, international is the right place to be. You want to be in the market internationally. And it would be international if you're living in the U.S., the U.S. market being domestic. But if the price chart falls, that means the domestic market, in this case, the U.S. market, is actually outperforming. And if you are diversified between these two over the last 20 years, you're literally driving for the last 2 decades with a foot on the brake. Now, you're not going to get fired because the conventional thought is, well, of course you'd be allocated internationally and domestically. But when you look at this price chart with your brain, and I know I put the 2 arrows on it, you'd immediately go, oh my gosh, when that line is falling, and it's been falling since 2008, that's like a long time ago. That means the U.S. stock market has been noticeably outrunning and outperforming the international stock market. So you do not want to have exposure to the international stock market. And if you live in Europe, you do not want to have exposure to the European stock market. You just want the U.S. stock market. This is real. This is not an interpretation. This is not an opinion. This is not a belief system. I'm showing you actual data here. And it's hard for people to go, really? Because everyone says you should be diversified. And when I talk about diversification, I'm talking about stock market diversification. And specifically right now, I'm talking about one of those chestnuts that everyone believes. It's a sacred cow, right? It's a sacred cow that, of course, you have money exposed internationally and domestically. But this chart proves that's not actually true. Now, there's 2 things people often say to me who dig into this. One, well, you can't know. You don't know when to change over, because look back in 99 and 2000 and 2001, and there'll be some whipsaws, and so therefore you should just never do it. Oh, okay. Well, rather than taking that approach, you should say, what is a way that I can mitigate whipsaws? And there's 2 very simple answers. One, dollar cost average out of one and into the other. You can even do it over a year or 2 years. so you don't get whipsawed. And if you do, it's not even a whipsaw, it's just a slight underperformance, but with the intention that you will then be noticeably outperforming during the other 6 or 7 years. And the other thing is you can simply say is, well, you're right. There is a way that we want to move from one asset to another. And so let's dollar cost average. I already talked about that. That's number one. But number two, maybe let's just put in some moving averages to minimize the whipsaws. Now, I don't have 2 moving averages on here, but I do show those to my members, the ones who buy the research, so they know when to be in one or when to be in the other. And this is not just this one, but there are some allocations or some assets that are starting to change, meaning the baton's been in the domestic runner's hand for a while, and that domestic runner's hand is outreached and about to hand the baton to another part of the world. And if you know that, then that can accelerate your wealth in a safe way. You do not have to take on more risk to have more reward. That is misinformation that's been fed to you by people who want you to give them your money so they can align your money with their business model. I had to think about all those different positions there. So that's what's going on right now, and that's what's actually happening. So please, if you have a big box advisor or a friend that you trust and like, there is no downside to you getting your portfolio audited. And it just reminds me because I had a conversation this week with a listener, and he actually started off the conversation. He goes, RC, so just so you know, I've been listening to your podcast for 5 years. And he actually said, I was actually kind of scared to talk with you. I was scared because I think part of me didn't want to know that I was doing something wrong. I think it was maybe an ego thing. And in the past I had said, and I'll say it again, that your amygdala, that is part of your emotion center. It's in your limbic system of your brain. Your amygdala literally calms down if you can name the emotion. So literally, if you're scared and you just say out loud, wow, I'm really scared to call RC and have an audit, have a strategy session, that literally in real time calms down your amygdala. And this is not future science. There are fMRIs that look at people's brains. And once they're experiencing an emotion, they can show them 2 pictures, one that loads up fear. And they have one group literally say out loud, what are you feeling? And if they say, I'm feeling scared, I have fear going on right now, that literally calms down the limbic system, the emotional center of the brain, the amygdala. And so literally he said, I remember you saying to me, if I just say out loud the feeling I'm having, it will actually calm my brain. He goes, I started saying, I'm scared to call RC. And he goes, you know what? It actually calmed my brain down. So I called you. And he goes, it has made such a difference in my life, just in that 55-minute, in this case it was a 55-minute. He goes, it made such a difference, and I'm so glad I named the emotion so I could actually start having my money grow harder and stronger for me. So what is the takeaway? So the first takeaway, or the kind of the theme, is stock diversification is a tax. It absolutely is a tax on your life. And instead of stock diversification, you want to look to align your money to the market. And you can do that. It's super straightforward. You can do that by knowing where is the place to have your money, right? So you want to align your money to the market. You want to look for things that are trending up, whether those are investments or relative price charts. So I showed you the price chart today was the international index being compared against the S&P 500. Is it trending up? Is there a reversal going on? You want to know what the trend is. And then lastly, what's the probability of your money safely accelerating? What is the probability of it safely accelerating being in the international market, or being in the domestic market, or being in mid caps, or being in large caps? What's the probability? Because if it's high, and probability is very easy to measure in investing, then you have that on your side, and it actually calms your brain down. I can't tell you how many clients have unsolicitedly emailed me over the years that say, man, when I hear a headline, when I hear someone say, oh my God, the dollar's crashed, I just immediately go over and look at a price chart, and I do the 3 steps you've asked me to do, and I go, oh, right away, my brain calms. It's about knowing the steps to take. Hey guys, this is just another step in helping you protect your portfolio and your future. Until next time, this is RC Peck. Hey guys, if you think you may have a conventional diversification portfolio, I want to drop in your brain the idea that if you have all your money in one idea and that one idea hits something, right? So even if it's like, I want to be in gold, and you've been taught that you should buy gold producers and gold developers and gold exploration stocks, and get some metal, get some silver, and get some mid-tier producers, and get some metal and gold, and buy some royalty stocks, and get some currencies that do better when the metals go higher, like, and get some small cap miners. Like, if you have this belief, and you know you have this belief if you look into your portfolio and you see that you own more than 2 precious metal ticker symbols, that probably means that there is a tax on your portfolio that is providing you or slowing down the choices and the security you have in your future. And I'm not sure what you're going to love best about connecting with me. First of all, how straightforward it is, but how we really just get into the meat and you come out of it going, oh my gosh, the level of clarity I haven't had before. But whichever one it is, you're going to know when the conversation happens. And the next step is super straight. I'm so excited about getting that scheduling app. So when you notice yourself just before that, having that, wanting to have that strategy session, go ahead. And it's in the PS at the email like it was last week, but it is there again. And let's connect, and let's see what we can do together to really have you get connected with your wealth, to have it really work hard for you. Thanks, guys, for being in my world. I mean that earnestly and honestly. I love what I do, and you being in my world makes it possible. And one of the things I love best, and one of the things my clients over the last 19 years have said that I do best, is when I connect with people one-on-one and I look at what they're actually doing in their portfolio and making a couple small tweaks or shifts so they get the changes they want. That's the difference that makes the difference in their lives. Thanks so much, guys. You take care.